So, guys, apparently many people are not happy about this episode.
Gentlemen, 29th was a historic day. 29th of May, we all went out. Hopefully, I know the stains are gone now. We all went and voted. We'll start with what were you expecting versus reality and your personal feelings around where we are today and the results. Zumasa.
And, guys, please tell me on the comment sections what did you expect versus the reality, and how do you feel about where we are right now? What did you expect versus the reality, and how do you feel about where we are right now?
Uh, Shocked, obviously, at the impact of MK Party. But I think when in the first episode, Mike and everybody kind of agreed. We thought that the impact of EMK would predominantly be in KZN. We did not think that it would be in Zulu speaking areas along the belt that starts in KZN, almost curves into Mpumalanga and comes to Jozi. That was quite interesting because if you look where they got the support, even getting 10% in Jozi, a lot of it came from the Zulu speaking areas. So it was not a regional party, it was more of a language-based association around the
Ethnic,
party,
yeah.
and that sort of feeling around the people who were speaking a language that people could understand. I guess they could articulate a lot of what they wanted a little bit better. And then obviously there was the protest vote from the ANC that moved to MK, and some of the people that didn't have a home in the EFF or felt that the EFF was not too far left enough, or wasn't serving them enough, that then suddenly went to go find a home. And Julius explained this quite well. He said, look, there were people who were just here renting space, but then they've now gone and found their home in MKP, specifically in a province like KZN. So I think those were the shocks. I don't want to go too far into it because I want everybody to kind of jump in as well.
Me, guys, personally, I'm gonna admit, man, you remember I used to say that the ANC is gonna win the elections again simply because of how South African voters are. But I'm happy that I was wrong. You know, going to the elections, I was anti-science. I did not want to look at the science. I did not want to look at the pollsters. I did not want to listen to political analysts that were actually analyzing what might actually happen in the elections because of how South African voters are. You know, when the political analysts and the pollsters started saying that the ANC is not going to get 50%, okay, I was fine maybe with the thought that the ANC was going to get less than 50%. But when they started saying that the ANC was going to get less than 45%, that is when I said, okay, these people are now driving a narrative. There is no way that the ANC is going to get less than 45%. And man, was I wrong or was I wrong? Was I wrong or was I wrong? And the big shock, I mean, had to be Umkhonto weSizwe. I mean, like, this political party was formed 6 months ago. This political party was formed. Jacob Zuma announced this political party on the 16th of December last year. They only had 5 months to prepare for the elections. And for them, going from 16th of December to be the third biggest political party in the country, that was the big shock. That was a huge shocker to all of us. I said that Umkhonto weSizwe was going to get like maybe 3 or 4 or 5 seats at most. I didn't think that these people would actually get 58 seats. So they kind of shocked me. When it comes to the EFF, I was dead right because I said that there is no way that the EFF is going to grow because of the emergence of Umkhonto weSizwe. There is no way that EFF was going to grow with the emergence of Umkhonto weSizwe. This is despite their leaders saying that they are gunning for the DA. After these elections, the EFF will be the second biggest opposition in this country. They were gunning for the DA only for Umkhonto weSizwe to gun for them. So it was kind of insane, man. It was kind of insane. As for how the country it is, I don't think that I will ever settle, or I don't think that South Africans will ever settle until the government has been formed. You see all of these reports that are coming left, right, and center that the DA demands this, the ANC wants this, there is no concessions about this, there are deadlocks about this. I think all of these reports are making South Africans feel anxious. They are making South Africans feel at ease. I think right now the only thing that can actually make South Africans feel a bit easy is if the government is formed and now things are going forward. But now, as things are, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not happy at all about everything that I'm hearing about the government of national unity. I'm not happy at all about the fact that these people are fighting for positions. But after all, they are politicians. They will fight for positions whether we like it or not. But the fact that there's a stalemate about the ministerial positions, these are the things that can actually, that has the potential of destroying the government of national unity. So I am not happy about where the things are right now, but I guess this is the phase, this is another phase, this is the negotiation phase where people are actually negotiating and debating about how the country is going to move forward. Once the government has been formed, once Ramaphosa has announced his cabinet, I guess this is where South Africans will start feeling a bit easy, and I myself too, I will start feeling easy once the cabinet is being announced. As long as the cabinet is not being announced with these reports that are coming left, right, and center, man, I'm still anxious about everything that has been taking place.
From my side, the big argument became, and certainly JJ and I got into it on his show and on this show, was whether to believe the polls that were coming out.
Yeah.
And he refused to believe the polls, and I did believe the polls. And the polls got it spot on, except for MK.
Yeah.
But they got MK is a big deal, and it made a big impact. But the big question, if we recall, was, would the ANC slip below 50%? And I said they would slip well below 50%. And then I also got a lot of comments about, 3/4 of the comments were hate comments about the fact that I thought that the EFF would actually not grow, that they would actually shrink, and that happened. I thought that MK would have...
Did you get an apology?
No, there's no apology.
Never.
Yeah. We did. I don't think anybody quite got the extent of MK's impact, but we did. Certainly, we thought that it would go to other places, maybe some of these new parties or something. But it ended up the way it ended up. But on the big issues, as they were, the three biggest parties got those right. Yeah. So even the DA staying where it is, which I know everybody's saying it's a good result, but in a bad climate, they stayed where they were.
True. And speaking of the DA, man, going to the elections, as we approached the elections, I remember saying that I think one of the political parties that is going to take the big hit is the DA. And this is the reason why I will not indulge social media anymore. I will not indulge social media anymore because, when you spend your time on social media trying to understand where people are, you could actually say that the DA is going to suffer. I guess that this is the reason why the EFF actually thought that they're going to surpass the DA because of what people were saying on social media. Sometimes when we are on social media, we tend to forget that the social media does not represent real life. This is not real life. The hate that DA is getting on social media, it doesn't mean that this is the hate that people has for the DA on the ground. The love that the EFF gets on social media, because we always laugh and mock the EFF for the fact that they always win the elections on social media. They always win the polls on social media. But when it comes to the election time, the EFF does not get those kind of numbers that they normally get on social media. So when we spend time on social media, sometimes we tend to forget that social media, it is not a real representation of what's happening on the ground. For some time, I actually thought that, okay, maybe John Steenhuisen is going to fight for the DA, but I didn't think that John Steenhuisen was going to actually grow the DA to the numbers and actually grow it better than Mmusi Maimane, because people were actually looking at John Steenhuisen and saying, what if John Steenhuisen get less votes than Mmusi Maimane? And John Steenhuisen got more votes than Mmusi Maimane. People were actually hoping for John Steenhuisen to get less votes than Mmusi Maimane because people wanted to see what the DA is going to do after Mmusi Maimane failed to get that 22% of Helen Zille. The DA got rid of Mmusi Maimane, so we want to see what the DA is going to do with John Steenhuisen. But John Steenhuisen, man, really worked on these elections, because whether we like it or not, over 3.5 million people actually voted for the DA. So it looks like the DA is still popular. This is despite what people are saying on social media. So next time when we go to the elections, I am not looking at social media anymore. No more.
Eugene, what were your expectations versus these outcomes?
My expectations were exactly what's happening now. To people that I speak to, I said this is going to be an election of classes. The middle class versus the lower class. It's as simple as that. Is the middle class willing to protect what they have? Their nice neighborhoods, their cushy jobs, their freestyle ways of making money, their nice cars and their plush neighborhoods, them riding their 350,000 rand bicycles in 4 ways. Are they willing to protect that, yes or no? And if they are, they will come out to vote. And the poor, if they really want to be living like the middle class are living, they're going to go out and vote, right? And that's exactly what happened. Where I live, I never seen a blended group of people like that unless you go to Starbucks. The polling stations felt like a Starbucks queue. Mixed. Everyone wearing their K-Way jacket. Everyone was nicely joking and having fun without having actively campaigning in the queues. We could already have telepathic conversations about who we wanted to keep this like this. We all agreed, black, white, young and old in that queue, we all agreed we wanted to keep it like this. And I can tell you now, the same conversations were happening elsewhere. But now you see the results, Government of National Unity, the ANC of the people who want things to be done right versus the DA who want to prove that they can do right are now working together. It's exactly explained in all the malls, in all the coffee shops, in all the restaurants, in all the dealership conversational, the golf course conversations. That's what this result is. And finally, it's going to come to fruition. I'm happy about it. I'm looking forward to the next 5 years.
Jan?
Of 4 ways.
So I don't want to brag, eh? I really don't want to brag.
I saw, before you go on, I saw a podcast where you said 68%, I believe.
65%.
65% for the ANC.
Yes.
You predicted.
So actually, ANC is still at 65%.
You're right.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
Yes.
It has not moved.
Yeah, it's right.
So if you add ANC plus MK
EFF.
plus EFF, nothing has moved.
Crazy, right?
South Africa has not changed. All that has changed is the games inside the ANC.
And the
I mean,
factions,
think about it. Think about how does a leading party drop 17%?
That's massive.
None of it goes to the main opposition. None of it.
True.
Guys, South Africa has not changed. If there is anyone that we owe a thank you to, all of us, is MK. Because all of these dynamics, the story of the elections of 2024 is one line, MK.
Yeah.
True.
But I called the 15%. I called it on Mike's show. Now you can go check it out. On Mike's show, I said MK 15%. On Caesar's show, I said MK 15%.
Crazy.
On David's show, I said MK 15%. Why? Simply because people are emotional. You have had ANC coming out, or EFF coming out of ANC. First elections, they came out just over 5%. They were not at the top of the house inside the ANC. They were in the Youth League. They come out at 5%. Cope comes out. We kind of like think Becky's behind it, but he doesn't come out and say, I'm behind it. Cope goes to elections without policy, having gone to elective conference policy. Where do they come up? 7%.
That's well.
Now, you have a party that comes out of a president that openly says, this is my party. But South Africans expect it to perform worse than Cope and worse than EFF when it came out. That's superstition, man. No, that's just people are emotional.
Yes.
Yeah, true.
There was no way Zuma, who's so popular, who has been sent to KZN so many times, ANC has never won KZN without sending Zuma. Never. But somehow South Africans expect them to come out lower than EFF. Come on, guys.
No, I beg to differ.
But to say that ANC is still 60% despite losing 70%, simply because this 17% didn't go to the DA or other political parties, man. Like, man, it's still shady because like the political parties that you are talking about are not in coalition with the ANC. I would have said that the ANC is still 60% if maybe EFF and MK party were to get in coalition with the ANC. You know, I used to say that if EFF and MK party, for some reason, they end up in a coalition with the ANC, that means that the ANC is still running things because EFF and MK party are the breakaway parties from the ANC. So if they come back to the ANC, it means that the ANC is still running things. But to say that the ANC is still 60% despite these percentages going somewhere, man, I don't know.
I think, and I agree with you as well. I don't think South Africa, and I'm speaking to about South Africans that are not too clued up in politics, of Jacob Zuma, for example, that know the history of how we end up being co-opted as the guy who campaigns for the ANC in KZN. I'm speaking for everyone who lives far away from that dynamic. People did not expect him, and obviously that happened, to win the elections.
Yes.
You see, getting a high number, that's an educated guess, a guesstimate, and you are spot on.
Yeah.
But the average person did not expect him to win.
Yeah.
So as much as the ANC is said to be declining or the EFF is declining, he was not going, in people's minds, he hasn't won.
Yes.
So he has won to political scholars and to people inside the ANC.
I just want to add something quite interesting. What really came out to me this week, and I other than maybe creating one video where I looked at the immediacy of the elections just after, I've really just kept quiet and just looked and watched and observed. Yes, I've observed.
Yes.
What came out was I saw a post by somebody who's an MK supporter who says, Zuma failed us. He failed us because we gave him a mandate. And instead of him using that mandate we've given him to leverage for what we
want,
he then leveraged the mandate for himself. And through that, he then collapsed this entire block of people who have voted for him, thus nullifying our impact. Because we didn't get an outright majority in KZN, right? But we did so well. So if he was one of the first people to start saying, we are going to negotiate to get into power immediately, they could have easily said, IFP, we're together.
Yeah, easily.
But it's not true, because EFF was one of the ones that very quickly said we accept the results and we are preparing to be ministers.
Yeah, but what we've learned
Funny
is what
enough.
they and what they do are two different
Things, right? So out of that, there's a huge number of people who, as has been plainly put here, who didn't want more of the same from the same guys, but they wanted a different path in terms of execution.
Absolutely.
Right? And they mandated to MK that we're giving you this mandate, just as people gave to the EFF, right? We're giving you this mandate for you to champion leftist views within the greater discourse of South Africa. By you not negotiating to get into positions that actually allow you to turn the levers towards the left, you have actually taken our vote and thrown it to the wind.
And I guess this is the reason why a lot of MK supporters are actually, maybe I can say they're starting to regret why they voted for MK, because a lot of MK supporters, they still don't know why MK failed to govern KwaZulu-Natal, despite MK party getting 45% in KwaZulu-Natal. What actually stopped MK party from governing KwaZulu-Natal? Because these conspiracy theories that the MK people are coming with, that the open-aimers, there is no way that the open-aimers could have actually allowed MK party to govern KwaZulu-Natal. We got 45% and there was no way IFP could have voted with us because IFP got 20 million, and this 20 million, the condition was that they must not go into the coalition with the MK party. I think to MK supporters, all of these things are sounding like excuses, because the leader of the IFP, Hlabisa, actually came out and said that we waited for MK party. MK party wanted a meeting with us, and we said that, guys, it's fine, we can meet. But MK party did not come in 2 hours, and we left. The senior of IFP, they left, but apparently Mkhuleko Hlengwa stayed for the next 2 hours. For 4 hours, MK party did not pitch. So, like I said, guys, in the previous video, man, I honestly don't think that Jacob Zuma anticipated MK party to get as much support. I don't think that the MK supporters themselves, they thought that the party was going to do so good. And them failing to govern KwaZulu-Natal despite getting 45%, man, like, that is a huge failure on their side. I'm not going to lie. That is a huge failure on their side.
Because they didn't negotiate. Everything that's coming out of how did you negotiate is actually coming out into saying these guys didn't want to. MK didn't have a negotiation team that didn't have to say Sfonele Ubaba. That EFF came out and said we want to negotiate. Then they said we don't want to govern with white people.
Well,
it became clear from them.
EFF said they are preparing to go to government. You know where I strongly differ. There was no negotiation with MK. there was not even prospects of negotiation with MK. So we tried to articulate this before elections. Once ANC drops below 50, you are going to have this split between what leaders of the ANC want and what the followers of the ANC want. The followers of the ANC are very much leftists, right? But the problem, if you are a Mbalula or a Lamola and all of that, and you embrace anything that brings Julius and Zuma back in the fold,
Never.
you are dead.
But Jan,
There was never genuine appetite by the ANC to ever negotiate with MK and EFF.
But despite that, Fikile Mbalula still said that they contacted MK and they could not get hold of the team of negotiators from the MK. If anything, they got that we are waiting for Ubaba, we are waiting to hear from Jacob Zuma. So maybe there was no appetite in the ANC to negotiate with the ANC, but with the ANC to negotiate with the MK party. But at the end of the day, they did try to speak with the MK. The same thing can be said about IFP.
You will choose DA. Why? Who's posing a challenge to Mbalula in this dynamic? No one, in terms of his aspirations.
Yeah.
Imagine bringing Julius and Floyd and whoever Zuma brings in the fold. You are dead, right? So we are seeing, the classical case, Saul, earlier you were saying the influencer of business. There's a classical case of principal agent issue. This whole idea that is management making decisions that are in the best interest of shareholders.
Yeah.
I think we are seeing that classical case now. The leaders of the ANC are making decisions for themselves.
That's true, yeah.
The issue they fear is a revolt from the members. That's what they have to manage. They don't have to worry about managing the rest of us. I agree with you. The rest of us, comfortable life and all of that. I fear, how are they going to explain this
On the ground.
on the ground?
Man. But I think the supporters of the ANC, man, the supporters of the ANC are feeling like, I don't know if I'm putting it right, but the supporters of the ANC, for some reason, they feel like Jacob Zuma has destroyed the party. They feel like Jacob Zuma has destroyed the party, man, because instead of trying to find other avenues to negotiate with Ramaphosa, he went on to open a new political party, and that political party ended up destroying the ANC. So even the ground forces of the ANC, they are not particularly happy with Jacob Zuma. So I think these are some of the things that the ANC is looking at.
Ground.
Yeah, because a
I
lot
think-
of people
I
on
think
the
that
ground
you-
are unhappy.
I think
That's the issue.
we're missing one thing. Yeah, to me, it's a very important thing, and that is, I said on the show, Mustafa, the last time, I said this isn't the beginning of the end for South Africa. This is the end of the beginning,
Yeah.
right? And to me, what was unnatural from the start, this goes way back because Tata, I was around, right? And what was quite unnatural was what the ANC was, which was this broadest of broad churches, where they had communists, trade unionists, and at that point, budding business people that have now become proper capitalists.
Yeah.
So at some point, the party had to become one thing or another. It couldn't be this broad church, right? Because even when things were good and the country was growing in the Becky years, the leftists wanted to pull it down, and they did. And the trade unionists weren't happy that the capitalists were getting rich.
Yeah.
They had no right being in the same tent. And I want to just challenge one thing that you said, Jan. You said that they got 65%, and I understand your logic. But I think it's time for us to understand that no one's getting the band back together again, right? Because I do not see that happening. Give me one example anywhere in the world, especially South Africa, where a breakaway from a political party has rejoined the political party. I've never seen one case of it, right? It's not to say that the voters might not move, but I'm saying that a split is a split. And once it splits, I become the leader. I now don't have to listen to you. And then I don't want to
Game
answer.
of Thrones.
Yeah, it's Game of Thrones. I start my own tribe. I've got my own colors, my own flag. It's you started your own business.
Absolutely.
Right? So I've got I don't
Absolutely,
see that ever getting back together again. And to call it 65%, technically you're right. Practically, you're horribly wrong.
But let me tell you why I think so. Because these things, when you have negotiations, the issue is how far are you from each other, right? So, for example, I was not shocked to see that Action SA is part of the Moonshot Pact. There is no surprise there, right? You can argue that that's a separate party, but that break away from DA was willing to go back into the fold, whether that fold is called DA or whatever, right? But those people are not far from each other.
Yeah, but Jan,
right? The same thing.
That proves the point, because they did nothing but have a go at the DA the whole time.
No, but that's a
And
strategy.
they would never go back to the
I was
DA.
answering you on can people come together, right? I'm showing you that people can.
And
if you look at the EFF guys are very close with the Panyazas and all of that. So a level down from right, a level down from the top 6. There is a lot of alignment.
Yeah.
Even policy.
But you know, this is where I was saying there has not been any negotiation. There is one character that is missing in this conversation. Big business. I can tell you that there is an invisible hand that we don't talk enough about.
It showed itself
but
yesterday.
I don't think it's
Right.
invisible.
It's not invisible.
Who's it invisible to?
maybe to the layman.
To the layman. Guys, in South Africa, we have a history of a minister of finance appointed by a president, and that was a minister for a weekend in a democratic country. And no one is asking the question, under what circumstances? Who reverses a decision of a president of a democratic South Africa? We
I think he's talking about Des Van Rooyen. There, guys, Des Van Rooyen.
moved on.
So I want to answer you quite nicely. We saw the invisible hand, I guess, for everybody who thinks the hand is invisible yesterday.
Yes.
Right? Breakaway day for the JSE.
Absolutely.
There was
Green
not a single stock that was in the red.
Absolutely.
If it was, close that business down.
Absolutely.
But it showed that generally nobody. I've always understood that negotiation is a point where you do feel like I'm being screwed over, but not to a point where I feel like I'm walking away, and the other person mustn't feel like they've won the whole entire thing.
Yes.
So everybody kind of felt I didn't win enough for me to feel like I've won, nor did I lose enough for me to feel like I'm a loser. And in that case, we have to work together.
Absolutely.
And that's where we are now.
I just don't think there was any negotiations, genuine negotiations with MK and
But that was also because MK didn't. They flat out said, we don't want to negotiate, and these are our terms. Like, you've got to remove your president. And they're also like, no, bro, we don't come in and tell you who should be your guy.
Yeah.
And that's also, those sometimes are things that as people who analyze and are always reading about this stuff, we take for granted.
Yeah.
But those are simple things. You can't
I
come
think
into
those are
someone's house
diversions.
and say, your father can't be your father anymore.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if ANC said to MK, we'll negotiate with you if you get rid of Jacob Zuma?
No,
Exactly.
I don't
Zero.
think
And what is funny is that people are trying to make it look like it is a minor issue for MK to say that we can negotiate with the ANC, but we don't want to negotiate with the ANC as long as Ramaphosa is still the president. I don't know why people are trying to minimize it and trying to make it look like, no, it was nothing, man. It was nothing. Of course, it's something. Of course, it's something. And ANC took offense on that. They took offense. They knew that, of course, we lost the elections. We got 40%, but no one actually has the right to tell the ANC who their president should be. No one has the right to tell the ANC who their president should be. So I don't understand the gentleman when he said that there was no genuine negotiations with the MK party. But the MK party is the same political party that said that we are not going to negotiate with you as long as this person is the president of the country. They said this time and time again, that we are not going to negotiate with the ANC as long as Ramaphosa is the president of the country. So how do you expect the ANC to be genuine when you are saying things like that? How do you expect the ANC to be genuine? The same thing with Julius Malema. You remember that press conference of Julius Malema saying that the only condition they have is that Floyd Shivambu be made the finance minister. How can you come to the negotiation like that? That this is a non-negotiable. We want Floyd Shivambu to be made the finance minister. This is the only way the EFF can actually negotiate with the ANC. And now that these two political parties are sidelined, now they are saying that no, the ANC did not exactly want to negotiate with us. There were no genuine negotiations between the ANC and the EFF and MK party. But people are willing to forget all of these things that these two political parties have actually said. Like, it is so strange, man. It is so strange how now people are blaming everything on everything. Besides these things that these political parties have said.
Anyone would have gone into negotiations on that. These are postures, right? Guys, these people are playing us. They are coming and quoting each other on postures, but those are different to what happens in the negotiations.
So that's the thing where I think defined this election.
Yeah.
30 years later. It was no different from the elections of 1994. It was the elections of personalities as well.
Absolutely.
It was F.W. de Klerk versus Nelson Mandela.
I disagree.
How?
I disagree because I don't think the personalities are that strong now.
Hold on. So right now,
they may not be that strong right now, but
Mike.
the things that John Steenhuisen said rubbed people off the wrong way.
Yes.
People who were even thinking of voting for the DA.
Yes.
People
Agreed.
that are against Jacob Zuma, when they saw his posture and what he was saying about the ANC and ultimately not letting his party members go to parliament and get sworn in, were showing off his personality.
Weird, right?
Showing off his personality, right? The way Julius became so humble after the results were announced, and obviously we didn't know if he was going to fight or if he was not, if he was negotiating or if he was backing down or doubling down. We didn't know, right? But then Cyril Ramaphosa came out stately. He said, guys...
Yeah, but that's after the event.
No, I'm saying just in general. I'm saying for the person looking from the outside. Remember that for us, normal people who vote, who don't know anything about politics that much, it's only real until the person gets inaugurated.
It became real today.
That's what I'm saying. So the average person was looking at these people's personalities. There are a lot of people on social media who are coming after, for example, a Julius going, where's the mouth now? You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who are saying, Musima Imani. Oh, so you were starving for 5 years. Now that you're eating, you're back in the mix again. Because there was 5 years of being in the desert. There was that. So do you understand? There was a lot of personality politics happening. But to the average person, they had to pick who they were voting for based on what they were behaving like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cyril was a steady compass for all of us. Whether we like it or not, if we can look at all the personalities that I've mentioned, Cyril just looked like a steady ship. To a point where if we can all argue at a bar at Tiger's Milk, we can all agree at one thing. Out of the 5 people that I've counted, who would you rather lead the country?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I wanted to.
hey, but that one, man. Guys, let's say, I want you to tell something. Hypothetically, let's say the ANC gets rid of Ramaphosa. Who do you think the ANC should bring in? Let's say Ramaphosa get kicked out. Ramaphosa, he's no longer the president of the country. He's no longer the president of the ANC. Who do you think that is capable enough to actually govern the country? Who do you think is capable enough to govern the country? Because I can hear what Eugene is saying, that of course that we had our reservations about the President Ramaphosa. We had our own thoughts about the President Ramaphosa. But when you take Ramaphosa and all of these people that he was competing with, at the end of the day, people were much more comfortable with having Ramaphosa as the president of the country instead of these people that Eugene just mentioned. So in your own opinion, if we were to get rid of Ramaphosa, who do you think would be suitable to actually govern South Africa?
He was the biggest loser.
But even though he lost because the country wanted him to be more accountable and to actually execute things, we still were like, Mara, the other gents.
That's what
and that I agree with. I mean,
the other gents. Those other guys.
You see?
that I agree with. It's the same thing as under COVID, right? That I agree with. When the moment is, when the moment comes, he just seems to show up and be presidential.
Because on the other end, you had someone saying, I don't want to deal with you. And you had him going, Mina, if you want to talk, I'm here. Oh, come on, guys.
Mike, you mentioned the biggest losers, and for me, EFF is one of the biggest losers, right? Where did they get it wrong?
Yeah.
No. These are the numbers.
Yeah, give it to
Another
Mike.
1,000
Mike, what did I get it wrong?
Yeah, man, where did I get it wrong?
And we can speak about all the other, losers. But I mean, it's no point of talking about Rise and all those guys. We wouldn't expect them to make a dent. We didn't expect them to make a dent.
JJ would call them rats and mice.
Yeah, JJ.
In his
All the
honor.
rats and
In his
mice.
honor. In his
We know
honor.
the
Well,
word.
he also called MK rats and mice. Is that 1 or 2 seats?
All those other guys look like they were there to divide a particular vote, the
Very
black
clappy.
vote.
Yeah.
Right? And the one force, and I say this because EFF, a lot of us expected it to do well because we see it. We
I
see it
told
on the
people-
ground.
and I told
It's
people it's not gonna
relatable.
happen.
When your boss calls you the K word, they're the first ones to pick it outside that building and, try get that social justice for the layman. And you'd think that win the heart of the people.
Yeah, but so how many?
Where does it go wrong?
How many times do we dance to a song and have challenges, but it doesn't reflect on the sales of the song? How many times do we like a song? There's dance challenges, but then you look at
But
the
it's a
Spotify.
dance challenge. They are
Yeah, but
addressing...
I'm not talking about popularity on the ground. It doesn't
but
necessarily
addressing
result
real
in numbers.
issues. It's not like a dance challenge or a fad.
No, 800%.
They're
When-
addressing real issues.
No, when you're out
that
there
touch
throwing
people.
outside the clicks, a dance challenge,
So,
it's gonna pass.
Okay,
Exactly.
where did they go wrong, and how did because I saw a glimpse of a new approach, especially when they accepted the results, because you'd expect them to be the first guys to get on top of
That
that.
was not a glimpse of a new
That
approach.
was a
Nothing.
tracking.
I not glimpse of a new
Don't be
approach.
confused.
So
It was to say, hello guys, pick us.
True, but also, I don't think they'll maintain the same posture based on the results, because you can't keep doing the same thing and expecting different results.
Yeah,
So
it's a-
where did they go wrong, and how do they
Mike wants this
rebuild?
one.
How do they rebuild?
I do want this one because I've said
Mike
it
loves the EFF.
Shame, man. I think they're necessary. I think that the EFF is like the valve on a pressure cooker,
Right,
right? If you don't have that thing, the thing's going to blow up.
right.
So let those people go there, be the 8% party in time, and they can sit there for the rest of their lives. Julius will still be the leader in 20 years, he even said it. So, but at least those people won't be, he won't be influencing national policy. I've made this point, and I shouldn't be making this point because I've got to be careful when I do it. I don't see black aspirations being reflected in the EFF, right? I don't. I see people being very entrepreneurial, wanting to carve their own way in the world, be entrepreneurial, not listen to the commander in chief, not tell you what to wear, not tell you that you can't own land. I see that. I see the aspiration. In fact, when I see that, I see the embodiment of what the apartheid government tried to do. To say, you'll know your place. I'll tell you where you can stay. I'll tell you that you must come and collect your money from the government, and you don't make up your mind. I'll make up your mind for you. That's what I hear when I hear the EFF, right? I'd say that, and I've taken a lot of heat for that, but I'll say that I think that there is a limit to how popular that line is in this country, right?
100%.
And, to me, that was the problem that I had, because I don't see that reflected in our population. I see smart people who are entrepreneurial and have got big, big aspirations. Yeah, you got a party that's got to call you a fighter, and you've got to wear red, and you've got to wear a beret, and you've got to do this. Please don't tell me what to wear, right? So I see it as being 1960s politics. It's not going to bite in the 21st century. That was my view from a political point of view. They were a sideshow, the flip-flopping eventually. South Africa's in a place where all of us have felt it. We've had a bad couple of years.
Yeah, we did.
And people want to get back to work. They want to start making money. They want to. We don't want to sit and have these same fights over and over again.
Yeah.
Eventually, you want somebody that looks forward and not looks back.
Yep.
And I didn't see that reflected. And that's why I thought, even before MK came on the scene, that I thought that their policy message and the constant disruptions and this and that were sideshows that weren't really going to give them significant growth. And that's where, long before the MK came along, and this whole thing was being flouted that they're going to be the official opposition, I never saw that happening.
Yeah. So I
And to tell the truth, man, like no one actually believed that the EFF would be the official opposition. No one actually believed that. And the tone of Julius Malema, the insults that he hurled at South Africans, and his unwillingness to listen to what people are saying on the ground. These are things that are going to make the EFF to lose elections, another elections, because they are still not listening to what the people are saying. I mean, if you take the issue of illegal foreigners, South Africans never said that they are against the foreigners. Because if you look at it, South Africa is one of the most diverse countries. So there is no way that South Africans themselves are going to hate foreigners. But South Africans are saying that these people that are jumping the borders and coming into the country and misusing these resources that we are paying for with our hard-earned tax money, something needs to be done about that. We are not saying that we don't want Zimbabweans in the country. We don't want people from Mozambique. We don't want people from Malawi. We want people to come into the country. But what people want, they want people to come into the country legally with the papers, so that if they commit crimes, they can actually be traced, just like how South Africans can actually be traced when they commit crimes. But Julius Malema repeatedly twisted the words of South Africans and continued to call South Africans xenophobic, even after the people had specified to him that we are not saying that we hate the foreigners. We love the foreigners. The foreigners are welcome in South Africa. But people do not want these illegal people that are in the country illegally. And people want you, as the leader of the political party, to acknowledge the crimes that these people are committing and be able to call out these people that you love so much. You can love Africa, but at the same time, you can still tell Africa that, guys, you must respect us as the country. Respect us as the country. This is the only thing that South Africans actually wanted. But Julius Malema took the whole message and twisted it as if South Africans are saying that we don't want illegal foreigners. We don't want foreigners in the country. We are xenophobic. We only want South Africans in the country. And continue to say that we don't want your xenophobic votes. If you want me to act against these people that are jumping the borders and coming into the country illegally and misusing these resources that you people are paying for, I'm not going to do that. And people said, okay, if this is how you feel, then we are not going to vote for you. We are going to take our votes. You tell us that you are not desperate to be the president of the country. What you want is to unite South Africa. What you want is to unite Africa. And at the same time, the same EFF says we want to industrialize South Africa. And people are left shocked, because how can you say that you want to industrialize Africa, South Africa, but at the same time you don't want to deal with the issue of illegal foreigners? So you want to industrialize South Africa, but at the same time you want the South Africans to fight for job opportunities with the people that are in the country without the papers. Is this what you want? Is this what you want? So the EFF, their messaging and their arrogance and their inability to actually call out their leader and say, man, stop talking to the people like this. South Africans are not stupid. South African voters are not stupid. These are people, they are telling you about the things that they experience in their own communities. You live in the suburbs. So where you live, South Africans cannot even get in. But you are telling South Africans on the ground to accommodate the people that poses a danger to them, to their children, to their family. But where you live, you are safe with your family. It is not fair to South Africans. And this is how South Africans actually view things. That how can you live in the suburbs and at the same time tell us to accommodate the people that are posing threat to us and our families while your family is safe? But when you listen to these people speak, man, even right now, they are not willing. They are not willing to listen. They are not willing to listen to the people. They still continue to twist people's words, because according to them, they are smart and the South Africans are stupid. The people on the ground are stupid, and them there at the Winnie Mandela House, they are the ones that are smart and people are stupid. And today they got 9%. They got 9%, and if they do not fix their attitude towards South Africans, their attitudes towards how they address things and acknowledge the things that South Africans are complaining about, if they do not change that attitude, I'm sorry, but it is gonna decline even more. You think that 9% is worse? Wait until 2029 and see what South Africans are going to do to the EFF.
I want to actually say something. It's almost like it's the it's the Cyril conversation we just had now, where we say, who did we see outside of him taking over? And that kind of scared people because I may disagree with the Lesetja Kganyago, right? But I don't know if I want to put anyone in right now.
Yeah. You
Like,
know another
like,
one?
like I don't want another person.
Yes.
Like, I know his track record. I may disagree with how and at times how we're keeping rates the same. We're gonna change. We're gonna tweak. The economy is running hot. It's running. Like, I may disagree on certain things because I'm an advocate for small businesses, right? And I worry about how things he does affect small businesses. But at least I can argue with that guy. I don't know who's another guy that they're going to bring in. Because also, I think, was it Kuben Pillay? He also left. And there were a couple of guys in our finance cluster, a lot of guys who started moving out just before elections. And I got freaked out. I was like, it doesn't really matter what happens next, but you need your finance cluster from your finance minister to your governor of your reserve bank to national treasury, right? And everything in between and SARS. You need those things working so that we can, the rest we can figure out as we go along. So for me, I felt that a lot of, I knew what I was going to get economically from the ANC, right? It was either going to be more of the same or we were going to move positively. The other guys, I didn't know economically what I was going to get.
Yeah.
And that was the scary thing about it for a lot of people, is to say
No one
to
is
you,
promising anyone anything.
what
Like,
if you, so if the ANC is telling me, we've built the policies, we're just terrible at implementing them, but if we implemented them properly, we could cook, gents. I'm like, okay, the needle stays the same or it goes there.
Yeah.
But if somebody else comes in and says, I want to kind of change the economic thing and I go, but we can't change the rules because we are part players in a global game.
Yes.
We can't be the only ones that say, Tina sifuna ukudlala ngamateka so and want to wear a different
All
kit.
of overnight.
A different
and then,
game
but we still want to
altogether.
play in the global game.
Overnight.
That changes things because I worry that the conversation that was never had during these elections is the economy. Actual, tangible things that we are going to do to move the economy from stagnation, where it is now, to get it singing.
But I think it was a trump card of all the parties that knew that they didn't stand a chance of dethroning the ANC to make it look like there was an invincible hand of business trying to control things. The conversation has always
As
been
business
there.
is important.
Yeah, it's always been there.
Business is important.
It was never a mystery.
But the one thing you've got to just acknowledge is who is business? Business is us.
It's us.
It's us.
Yes.
It's everybody. And I'm telling you,
if you are not
believe me,
whose business?
if you are not consulted on policy, right? There's the rest of us, right? So there are people who were consulted before any policy is signed off, guys, to say what's your view on this thing. Not everyone is business.
But they don't have your address, Agir.
No, they have my. But let's go back to the EFF thing.
Yes.
I got the EFF wrong. I might have got MK right.
Yeah.
But maybe, again, that's also me. I still wanted EFF to get some growth. You see, the way we are talking, I'll tell you now. We are talking about all of these options as if we were choosing a president among them, right? I don't think that's how we need to be thinking about it. The way I think we need to be thinking about it is there's going to be a leading party, and there are certain parties that we need for specific noise. You understand?
To champion the
To champion that,
voice.
yes.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people who are voting the EFF, not because they want EFF to be the government, but because you are raising the important issues that no one else is raising, right? So the reason I still wanted EFF to have a bigger voice, now my view was that they will get to 15%, but they will start to decline. Why? The politics of fear are difficult to sustain.
And maintain.
Yeah. Right? But what worries me now with a muted EFF is I want to see where the conversation on transformation is going. I want to see where the conversation on land is going. I want to see where the conversation of changing the makeup of corporate South Africa is going. Because we need someone with a strong voice, not to become government, but to continue to challenge, to bring those things up.
But the thing is that those conversations will never be able to be had. Those conversations will never be able to be had because one thing that you guys are not appreciating about the EFF is that once the EFF forms a position, they think this is how things are. There is no space for negotiations. There is no space for negotiations. once Julius Malema says that this is how we feel about the land, there is no space for negotiations. And again, this is what people hate. People hate it when you make them feel like they cannot even contribute to the conversations that are supposed to be had. There is no space for conversations because the EFF supporters, it's almost as if they are conditioned in a way that once a party takes a certain position, they go to that position. And anyone who dares to ask a question, anyone who dares to say, guys, why do you say that the state should be the custodian of the land? Anyone who dares to question the EFF's position, they have their supporters to make sure that they deal with that individual. So this whole idea that the EFF is a necessary voice so that they can raise they can talk about the things that no one is talking about. Of course, I do agree with you on that. But at the same time, the EFF is shooting itself on the foot by actually not allowing the conversations and by actually conditioning their supporters to actually attack everyone who tries to start a conversation about these things that they always talk about. So this idea that we are always right, we are right, no one can come and no one should come and challenge us, no one should come and challenge the official position. This is the reason, again, why people are not interested on having these conversations with the parties like the EFF. This is the reason why people have moved from the EFF to Umkhonto Wesizwe, because they are hoping that with Umkhonto Wesizwe, maybe there can be a conversation about these things that they failed to have conversations about within the EFF. The EFF has not listened to the people, especially when they take certain positions. Once Julius Malema comes out and says, this is our official position, we are not going to work with the DA because the DA is a racist political party and we want nothing to do with them. The supporters of the EFF are all behind that. There is not a single person that can say, but you guys in 2016, you gave these people metros, but how can you come and now say that you cannot go into the coalition with them, whereas you gave them the power in 2016? So these are kind of the dynamics that the EFF should look into. The fact that there is no space for conversations, especially with the people, even on social media. I think Julius Malema, as the leader of the EFF, needs to be able to say that, guys, we need to encourage the debates within the EFF. We need to encourage the conversations within the EFF. Of course, we can have a position as the party, but we still need to be able to talk about that and to debate about that. And I think this is the reason why people love the ANC, because when it comes to the ANC can come with a certain position, but you will still see some members of the ANC going against the official position of the ANC. This is how the free speech is actually encouraged within the ANC, that official position from the ANC doesn't mean that all of us now has to be blinded. Now we cannot question anything that the NEC says. NEC comes out and says that we're gonna work with the DA, and some members of the ANC still say we do not have to work with the DA.
Or you don't achieve that by fighting.
Exactly.
You achieve that by talking.
It's agitation.
I felt like
Exactly.
there's another missed opportunity on mandate given to the EFF to actually get into a position to enact and show us that they have grown and they are a party that can lead. Whether it's a portfolio, whether it's something. This is a missed opportunity.
But they said
yes.
To what?
Yes.
They said, we are willing to talk.
But then they didn't.
Conditions.
That was immediate. That's the twerking
I
that
think
you guys
that's
are talking about.
diversion,
Because
guys. You're falling for the trap.
With 9%.
It's games.
with 9%, they are a big enough block to come back into the ANC to say, we would like the things we've been championing, talking about land, etc. We would like to get an opportunity and a shot to actually take this thing and disperse the land.
Guys,
that is a missed opportunity.
Guys.
Because if the majority was there in the way that they are saying it is there, they would have gone to the table and said, we are 10 years old and we feel now that we should get something to show our people that your voice will exist in government.
Gents, they tried. I'm telling you. Trust me. No, let me tell you. The first party to come out of the block and say we are accepting
as long
elections
as Floyd's a
and
finance minister.
No.
That's negotiating.
No. That was the rhetoric before. We are Julius even clarified. People are going to be asking me about Cyril and whatever. Guys, Cyril is the president of the ANC. Don't
Ask
put
me about
me into all of that mix, right? I'm telling you, this is all diversion. One day the real story is going to
What do
come
you think
out.
the real
And
story
then-
is?
The real story is the current leaders of the ANC don't want any of these people back close to the fold.
Why?
Because they pose a real challenge of the leadership in terms of succession. Remember, when you look at the top 6 today, you must say who are the next people. So think about it. Give me 6 names of the next people who are going to come in. You are starting to scrap the bottom of the barrel. There are good guys like David Makura, but he's not going to come up. Why? He's not a rabble rouser. He's not the type of guy who gets the crowd excited. It will be suicidal if you've got big aspirations and you are Ronald Lamula and all of that. And you
Bopanyaza.
bring Floyd and Julius close. You will be mad.
But the other side
But guys, he has a point, man. He has a point. He has a point. I'm not gonna lie. He has a point. Dead on.
of it is that when you have them in a portfolio that is not necessarily a portfolio that changes things other than executes things,
They
you
must
then
give
have an
them land. Yeah.
then you've got all of the things that you've been
Ministry.
saying, right? We give you the opportunity to do exactly what you said. There's government land. It needs to be dispersed. Here are the frameworks. Nobody can change the rules, right? Because nobody has a majority.
Yeah.
Do what you have been preaching about.
Yeah.
And because
They didn't want
this is
to.
a lost
test.
opportunity for
They
them.
never
And I
wanted
want people
TFF.
to understand, anybody watching this,
Yeah.
this is a lost opportunity for the mandate that has been given to a party like the EFF. And people have been supporting this party for 10 years.
Yeah.
Can you imagine supporting this? I mean, you can if you're a soccer fan for those teams. But if you have been supporting a team for 10 years, you know, insert team. So if you know that your team you've been supporting for so long, and all you've ever wanted is for them to show you the impact, there's no better place to show your capability than to actually get into office. And this is the scary thing about the EFF as it currently sits. I don't know where they've taken the mayorship or outright and said, we want to be. They kingmaker all the time. We'll give you our thing to get in. This was an opportunity on the largest stage possible to say 1 or 2 portfolios, and we will run and we'll show you what we can do when we are running a government department with billions of rands.
We said that until they finally did get close to power in some of these coalitions. And what did they do? Disrupt. Right? And that's what people are seeing. People have seen the mess they've created in Johannesburg, Kureleni, Nelson Mandela, eThekwini, Tshwane, wherever they've been around, and they can't help themselves.
You know,
So I'm saying,
yeah.
who wants to get close to that?
Speaking of the coalitions, I think we've seen the instabilities of coalitions. How many mayors, have we had? Now, with what we're currently looking at with this government of national unity, for the layman, what's the difference between, because some people are like, well, this is just a coalition with other than smaller parties, right? What's the difference between a coalition and what we currently have? Is this what a government of national unity should be looking like? Where it essentially looks like a party or a marriage between the DA and the ANC, and then there's other smaller parties that will get bullied around. Like what we saw in the Moonshot Pact, where the DA was bullying around people, even now.
Okay, so let's first debunk one myth.
Yeah.
Because there's a thing, yes, technically we had a government of national unity after 1994, but practically we didn't. There were a few ministers that were from the old government that were just there to skill transfer. But the ANC knew that they had 65% of the vote.
Yeah.
So it was sort of like, I'll listen to you,
Ceremonial.
but not really listen to you.
Ceremonial.
And that's why it broke down so fast. Now these guys have to work together. This over here, it's going to be more of a collaboration rather than a marriage. That's the aim of a government of national unity. That everybody is there by agreement, not because they have become one. And, you're going to very quickly see who's not playing the game. But what you can see by the composition, and this is where Cyril has been probably at his best, and he's getting the best of his life, because now he gets to be chairman of the board, pitches up every 3 months,
Some of his guys, other guys.
shits on everybody and then leaves, and that's going to be what he does. He doesn't have to be the CEO.
finally.
He can be chairman of the board, right?
Yeah.
For the poor guy, right? Because I think that's the common denominator in South Africa. A lot of people are poor. Is this particular government of national unity, with the parties it has at the moment, gonna help those people? Is it gonna benefit those people, or is it gonna benefit and maintain the status quo, which will see the poor guy getting poorer?
Let me just kick off on that line because I think that I've got a different view to the one that my friend Mr. Makhanwa over there was espousing earlier. I think that some of the thorny issues in South Africa have got a better chance of being solved now. Things like land, things like transformation. Rather, let's,
get in front of it.
As spokesman for the whites,
I love that.
We want to sit down, solve these issues. Everybody wants.
Come on, the adverts. We don't want the adverts, guys. But me, guys, according to me, this is the real government of national unity, man. What happened in 1994? The ANC didn't need to go into the government of national unity with those people because they got their 60%. But now the ANC got 40% and they desperately need other political parties to govern the country. So me, I would say this is the real government of national unity because no one has an absolute majority. In 1994, it was not, man. It was just like, this is kumbaya, all of us moving forward as the country. But now this is the real government of national unity, in my own opinion, because no one got a majority, so they have to work together. They are forced to work together. It's not like the ANC is doing this because no, they are not doing this as a favor to other people. They are not doing this as a favor to South Africans. They are doing this because they are forced to do it. So I would say that this is the government of national unity. Despite people saying that this is just a coalition of the ANC and the DA, I know that this is the narrative that has been flying now, that this is the coalition of the ANC and the DA, but like people are willing to forget that this coalition they talk about has other political parties too. They only want to talk about the ANC and the DA. They don't want to talk about IFP and other political parties. So in my own opinion, this is the real government of national unity because no one has a majority. They have to work together. They are forced to work together, unlike in 1994.
Everybody wants the place to grow. Everybody wants good health care. Everybody wants the same stuff.
Yeah.
If we can help, rather than being demonized and made an enemy and fighting and this, that, and the other. Otherwise, if you start fighting, everybody's just going to go into defensive mode.
Yeah.
I think we stand our best chance ever of resolving some of these issues because they're critical.
Yeah.
But the way to solve them is probably best like this, rather than say we demand, we're changing the law, we're going to expropriate whatever.
Also,
do you want to jump in?
No, go ahead.
So I want to add and say, what must be understood by the man on the street and the common person is that more will go into their pockets if the economy is working well. This is very important. If you've got the same 100 rand going around the room, that 100 rand doesn't grow. We keep splitting the same 100 rand as South Africa. This is important. The composition of our budget, our current budget, and maybe hopefully not subsequent budgets, but budgets going backwards, have always been that we spent less than 10% on things that could possibly grow our economy. We are very consumptive in our spending as a country. We literally, it's hand to mouth. If we don't change that, it doesn't matter who goes into power. If that is not their main aim, to grow the economy, and I'm not talking like in this whimsical way. I mean, we've got to trade our way out of this thing. We've got to sell things to the rest of the globe. It's not going to make sense. When people say, yeah, but why are they selling coal to this one? We've got to get dollars in. We've got to get euros in. We've got to get pounds in. We've got to get yen in. Yeah. This is the only way, ladies and gentlemen, that South Africa's economic conditions, current economic conditions, can change. It's the only way we can employ more people because there's more money in the economy. This does not change because of policy. It changes because of action.
And also, what I've realized in this country, we're very good at demonizing the middle class.
Yeah.
I'm a big champion of the middle class. The economy and the markets are the middle class.
Yes.
if the middle class are confident, because that's what we need. We worry too much about investor confidence. We are the investors here. The more I buy, the more I spend, the more confidence I have. Exactly. In opening my business, I can hire more people. And we must dispel this myth.
You know,
there's never going to be this utopia that we live in
So-
where the poor are now rich overnight. It's
not going to work.
It's not going to happen.
There is no society.
These guys have been drinking some strong stuff. Guys,
Why do you say that?
Guys, you're falling for the trap, right?
Where's the trap?
Jeez, a lot of
Guys,
We've
traps.
been looking for this
Guys,
trap.
No, let's
South
we've been
Africa,
for a lot of
South
things.
Africa, South Africa, despite all the challenges we have had, has produced more dollar billionaires, right, under democracy than under apartheid, right? So, despite all of these issues we've had, the formula for how value is shared, in the economy is simple. You've got income, you've got cost, you've got profit. The issue is capital willing? How far is capital willing to share the profit? That's the question, right? So the poor person, what we've been seeing in South Africa is the shift of wealth from the poor to the rich. Because if the economy is not growing, right? How do we have so many billionaires? How do we have the all-share index, the JSE index, it reaching highest level?
But again,
It is because there is a constant shift, right? So I've said this before. The corporate tax in 1993 was more than 50%. The corporate tax today is about 27%. That's a shift of wealth. Instead, the poor people are dealing with we know about black tax. We've been arguing that they are now also dealing with what we call a white tax. And what we call a white tax, it is all of these things that normally your money should have been sufficient to cover, but actually you now have to pay for. Private education, private energy, private water, private road, private this, private this. That's
But
all.
we love
just
our
agree.
private. All
You
of them.
shouldn't be paying.
no, I want
You've already
to.
paid.
I want to oppose that. I want to
You
oppose
already
that.
paid.
I want to oppose that. We currently sit, and I've got the thing open. This is not me eyeing the things.
Yeah.
So personal income tax revenue, right? 35% of that comes from people working. It's personal income tax,
Yeah.
right? 35%. That comes from a base of about no more than 6 million people in South Africa. I stand corrected on the number.
About 7. Yeah.
6 to 7 million.
Yeah.
So 6 to 7 million people out of the 72, I think we have 70 plus million people in the country. Out of the 70 million people, they're the ones personal income tax. So it gets taken every month. You've then got that corporate income tax that comes in at 20%. That's 55% coming from people being gainfully employed as a start. So if businesses are not working, less people get. This business is not making money. It pays less tax. Those people are unemployed. They pay less tax.
Yeah.
Half of our tax comes from that. Then the next 25% comes from VAT, people spending. So if I'm not employed, I'm not going to spend as much on VAT.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now you start to have, then the rest is just taxes of fuel levy and customs and whatever.
Yeah.
If a country is not trading, we have less customs and excise duties.
Yeah.
So I vehemently reject that conversation because I believe that what we need to do, when you talk about there being favorable conditions for business to thrive, in those first 15 years, South Africa 94 to 2009, the reason why we took that thing down is because the previous government could not survive without those types of taxes.
No, but-
wait.
But I'm not disagreeing.
Yes, but I'm
right?
trying to make it clear for people watching this that the view you've taken is that because we move from 50% tax to around 25% actual tax. South Africa, you stack the taxes anyways, right? Where the actual effective tax rate is quite high. It still is around 50 anyways. But what we're saying is that what creates the conditions for a small business to come out and play, to employ the 7, most countries that succeed, they are small businesses that employ between 0 and 1 to 10 people. No more. Most compositions, because those are the businesses that actually run the economy. In South Africa, we are stifling those businesses by creating too much taxation. If you say tax must go up, who is tax going up for as a company or a business? Wait.
No, I'm
then,
waiting.
Yes. Then as you come. No, I think he wants to jump in.
His turn is coming in. Hold on, his turn is coming,
Sure he
yeah.
doesn't.
Yeah. So then you come from that perspective and you say, okay, Sharp, the taxes went down, but the taxes went down in a period where South Africa had a surplus in 2004, 2005, when those taxes were coming down.
Yeah.
So suddenly we had money to invest. Obviously, it was squandered over the next couple of years. We all know that. But what I'm saying to you is that if we were to create the conditions for money to feel like it will make enough profit, that's the balancing act that the guys have to do. They have to say, we've got to tax the absolute maximum before we start to see negative effects. Because the negative effects, if a business feels like that they are stifled from actually gaining decent profit, and decent profit is relative to industries, and a lot of industries are actually well regulated. If a business feels it actually doesn't make sense for us to be in business, they pack up, they leave. Now, what is key for us to understand is that we've got to then get into conversation with business. For the longest time in South Africa, business has been vilified. Small businesses have been squeezed. And I've built a lot of those small businesses myself. I know that there are times in this country where you feel like this tax doesn't make sense. If we're trying to, if I go from 0 to 10 people, the government should be applauding me for what I've done. Instead, I'm heavily taxed.
Can I
to a
respond?
point. Yes, I'm heavily taxed to a point
Can I
where I
respond?
feel no, I'm about to give it to you now. I'm heavily taxed to a point where I feel like I can't then employ as many people as I possibly can under the same conditions.
I get that.
Because there's too much red tape and in terms of governance. Sharp.
We must be careful that I have a colleague who used to say we must be careful that we don't skin the wrong cat. Right? So for me, I'm not arguing that the biggest benefit is the growing economy. Absolutely no argument there. The question Saul asked, because we must go back to what was the question. The question Saul asked, what does this mean for the poor? And then Mike made a comment that a growing economy creates. This basically is the level of water that lifts, what lifts all the boats.
Rising tide lifts all
Rising
boats.
tide lifts all the boats. So there's that, right? And I'm saying the idea of, because that's what in America they used to call the trickle-down economy.
Trickle-down economy.
The idea that as long as the economy grows, this thing will reach everyone. That is not true. That's what I was answering. Is yes, we want a growing economy, but the idea that let's just free up the economy to do what it needs to do has never worked anywhere in the world. You need to be able to say, in this growing economy, how am I going to protect the poor? And how do I ensure that they benefit? That is what I was answering. And I'm saying we need someone to champion that. One of the richest people, if not the richest people in the world, Elon Musk. One of the things he has been talking about lately?
Basic income.
He's saying the world might need basic income. Why? Because he's saying we are talking about AI and automation and all of that, which means a lot of people are going to lose jobs. When jobs are being done by machines, how are we going to protect the people? The richest person in the world is talking about a grant. In South Africa, we bash grants.
Yeah, but that
No,
guy,
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why we bash them.
He stole it from Rogan.
So I'll tell you why we bash grants, right? Because under the current budgeting regime, under the current taxation regime, we don't have any more. There is no more room to move in South Africa. You know why people always say South Africa has no money? They don't literally mean we have no money. We have no room to move. That means that we have gone into our overdraft as a country. If we were a household, we've gone so far into our overdraft that even the money we were going to borrow from one credit card to pay another is now finished. So now what it means,
How do we remedy
must
that?
go. First things first, we need to stop the bleed of money that's in the system. There's too much money that's floating around that's not doing what it needs to do. In terms of things like infrastructure, in order for you to build an economy, you first have to build a road. If we're not getting that right, that means if our rail tracks are not working, we cannot move goods. It means we're spending too much money maintaining the N3, maintaining the N4, maintaining the N2 because trucks are on it. We've got to get that right. If we want things to work, we've got to get the train from Soweto into Park Station working so that people are spending less. Then what does that suddenly open to do? People can spend more on the things that can move the economy. That's how we are plugged into a
Well
bigger
said.
system.
Okay.
Yes.
But
South
now-
Africa has money.
But guys, during these elections, why were political parties not actually talking about these things that Mustafa and the gentleman are debating about? Why this topic of the economy was not the most important topic that politicians were debating about? Because we watched a lot of debates before the elections, but most of them, they didn't touch this issue of the economy. Why do you think is that so? Because I've never heard politicians actually debating about the economy. It's always about the narrative, who is good, who is bad. You shouldn't vote for this person because of this. You should vote for me because of this. But none of them have actually stood up and actually broke the economy down to the people of this country so that they can start maybe to try to understand what's happening with the money. Why wasn't this topic of the economy prioritized during the debate?
We do.
Terribly managed.
Now, with the current government, now I'm assuming this government works its here the way it is for the
new
next
G-
5
the new
years.
GNU.
The new GNU.
We don't know who's going to be in, but sharp, yeah.
The coalition.
You call it a coalition.
It's not a GNU.
Yeah.
Who must be placed, and by who I mean from political parties? Which political
I love
parties
this
do we
question.
trust to be placed in which departments?
So I think that
Key departments.
I think that the ANC must still keep the core, right? Because they're centrist, but they've shown that they're terrible at certain portfolios. They've shown. But I believe developmentally, because that's what we are, we're a developmental state. We need them still there because this is a mess they've created. So they must own it. So we don't want them away from portfolios where then they can suddenly say, "Oh, I don't know what happened. You know, we
then
left
the new person
in
can say, "I
2024."
inherited a mess."
Exactly.
like
it
they
becomes
said, they inherited a mess of apartheid,
yeah,
right?
It
And
becomes
was
a political
for
football.
30 years.
So what we
Yeah.
need is the ANC holding certain positions. I want them to lead on foreign policy, right? I want them to lead on foreign policy. I want them to lead even on SOEs because this is what's important around this thing. Nothing can change. The only thing that can change is the execution in those portfolios going forward. This is very key for people. So even if the DA or the IFP or the PA or whoever is in the GNU currently, because it could grow, could get less, if their role is to make things work, that's what we need
That's
as a
all we
country.
need, yeah.
That's all we need. But I don't want there to be titanic shifts. That's why I would have appreciated an EFF coming in to do the land policy.
Gene, what's
Because
your story?
then they
Again, to take on the face.
Nigani.
Yeah.
Because we do have an issue when it comes to illegal
Let's
immigration.
hear what Eugene wants
Okay,
as
but-
minister.
New Vicks Actiplus Extra Strong. Extra.
And guys, who are you vouching for in this in the cabinet that is about to be announced by President Ramaphosa? Who do you think deserves to be in that cabinet and why, and which position? Which politician or which member of a certain political party do you think would be fit for a certain ministerial position? I see many people are debating about Gaten McKenzie and the issue of policing and the home affairs. Some people are saying that maybe General Bantu Olomisa needs to be brought back. But guys, according to you, which ministerial position should actually be occupied by certain people, and who are those people, and why do you think that those people are actually perfect to lead these ministerial positions?
Yeah. Who should take what?
First, we must start. Can I go back a little bit?
Sharp.
Guys, let's just all be honest. Whenever I hear political pundits, economists talking about the economy, we must just drill it down to the basic level of things in life.
Yeah.
People who are doing well want to keep doing well.
Yes.
They don't care about those that are not doing well.
Yes.
It will never be our responsibility. People that are not doing well. So I always hear, so how is this going to benefit the
Especially when you pay tax.
Hey, my man, benefit people on the ground. I'm paying, yeah. Wasn't I there in the queue paying there and then you had the job? So what more can I do for you? Because if that were true, people will be paying their domestic workers more, their security guards more, their drivers more. Every time your Uber says 150, you'd say, actually, you deserve 1,500. So it's not true. The rich love getting richer. The middle class love
That's the
keeping
system we're in.
That's why we voted this. If any party is blind to that, then they're living in another planet. Everyone was protecting their wealth because we just came from a hammering. of people losing their businesses or people losing their.
So, in that analogy, what were poor people actually voting for? Because if the middle class was voting to keep things as they are, rich people voting to keep getting rich, what is it exactly that the poor people were actually voting for?
Houses from marriages. So no one is trying to share anything, especially with the less fortunate. There's not enough to share.
But that's the problem. You see, we have to care, and this is fundamentally my problem. And I've seen this with the corporates when you want to be the only ducky around the table, and you shut the door as soon as you come in, or you swallow the key. That is the problem.
You went far.
That is the problem. Right? We swallow the key. And this is the problem. People want to celebrate being the only ducky around the table. But let me finish, because he was managing me. I'm gonna manage him. All right? Guys, we need to say what are the right things to do for generations to come. You have to be willing to plant a tree, the shade of which you may never ever enjoy. That's the problem. So I'm not going to answer the question about the ministers. I can tell you this, so one day South Africans are going to be illegal immigrants in Zimbabwe. Yes, I'll tell you why. I was in Zimbabwe, right? I was in Zimbabwe, and things have gone so bad there. The vultures are gone. The ones that seek to strip everything. Right?
They're waiting for
the people who are there. The people who are there are starting to reap. No, let me tell you.
Illegal immigrants.
The people who are there, because the vultures are gone, the people who are there are starting to rebuild. Mark my words.
But let's
5 to 10 years.
Do they even have
5 to 10 years from now, we are going to talk about how do we find. The reason I'm saying this is, guys, there are certain things we can keep on kicking down the road in the name of the economy and avoid tough conversation on land, on transformation, and all of that for expediency. They will catch up with us
I agree
at
with
some
you,
point.
I agree with you, and let's have those hard discussions. And
They will catch up with
people
us.
are now in the room.
Yeah.
But to go back to our more immediate situation of where are the areas, what's the low-hanging fruit?
Yeah.
Well, I think that the most cruel joke that the ANC have played on South Africa for the last 20 years is we've had 3 successive long-term ministers of trade and industry that hated trade and hated industry. Ibrahim Patel, Rob Davies, Alec Irwin. You couldn't find the 3 more hardened Marxists who hated trade and industry, by definition. And they did everything they could do to stifle trade and industry in this country. Pravin Gordhan at Public, those kind of guys. Now get those guys who are controlling key parts of the country's systems.
Ability to make money.
Ability to operate, to make money for big companies and small companies. I agree with you that some of the portfolios, for example, finance, ANC has always done a brilliant job. Absolutely brilliant job.
Managing no money.
Managing no money. They're the best in the world. That's like a poor person managing their budget. They've done a great job. But take policing away from them because they just can't do it. So it's not so obvious as to which are the portfolios. But they're there and they're low-hanging fruit.
Small business, bro. That portfolio, I just want to say that portfolio has done nothing for small business. And if it has done something for you, and you can literally in the comments tell us what the small business department has done for you, I promise you, mate. There's never nothing.
If I'm the man, and I'll refer to this a lot, because I'm trying to see it from the common person's eyes.
Sure.
I see the GNU. I see a lot of conflicts, a lot of policy positions that clash. How do the guys then manage those compromises? Who compromises? When it comes to BEE, when it comes to things like affirmative actions, when it comes to...
Don't worry.
Nothing's going on.
These things will be solved by salaries. Don't worry. When I knew that these people are all liars, these politicians, is when I saw them in Parliament or at the ICC. They were all smiles, hugging, high five. I was like, so this thing was a nationwide Nasi span. These people are employed, my man. You understand from last week, these people are employed. They have a salary guaranteed. They're employed, so they will talk. They will meet there in the urinals. They will meet at the water coolers. They will eat at each other's houses when we are not watching that feed from Parliament. Don't worry about these policy positions that they're taking. They will talk. They will become friends. If there's one thing that brings people together, is when they are eating. Eating literally and figuratively. People love to eat. The hungry ones are the ones who are going to be fighting. The ones who are eating are going to be and I can tell you now, that room, that house is going to be full of people that are eating. Some for the first time, some for a long time, but they're all going to find each other. So don't worry.
So just to answer your question, I
didn't answer that question.
No, I'm jumping in. So I think that South Africans are very stuck on ideology, and I think it's very easy for people to create the fractious relationships amongst voters using ideology. Ideology, we've agreed as South Africans, as to speaking to Jan, there's a huge pact that says it's left and it's center and left. It's clear. That's where South Africa generally is. So now we've got to figure out how do we get on the ground and make things happen. So if the biggest thing was that the ANC felt unaccountable to people. It felt like they could do whatever they wanted. Because when things would change, they would change and they would all vote together. Now the ANC chief whips, the DA chief whips, the PA chief whips, they've got jobs. They must go whip up their votes for policies and simple. They literally have, this is the first time the guys have had to work. The first time a chief whip in parliament, caucus, has to work. Like umsebenzi, like dog, we've got something that's coming in 3 months that has to do with this and this bill. You've got to try and go get votes. That's literally what you've got to do. That's your job. So suddenly, you've got to start having discussions outside of your echo chambers.
Yes.
This is what's going to help South Africa. Everybody needs to be involved. I am saddened by MK for saying we won't go, won't whatever. I heard that they might go, they might not go to parliament. It's tricky, that thing. Some people work from home. But what we need to understand that everybody who's been voted for and got a seat in parliament, you have to be part of the solution. They can no longer be backbenchers. And for the longest time, a lot of people were saying that what actually happened is that ANC has lost a lot of backbenchers. People who are just chilling there doing
occupying space.
Now, you've got other people that can start to push things, that can start to get into those subcommittees and committees and start to push in a right direction. Guys, this thing is going to need everybody, I'm telling you.
Yeah, but I always hear people saying the cabinet needs to be stripped down a little bit. I'm like, there was a reason why there were deputy ministers in the first place. If at some point you're going to end up with the government of national unity as it was for Son all those many years ago, you're going to need someone from another party to look at what you are doing wrong. And also, South Africans have gotten into this mentality of liking to criticize the ANC. Now they're going to have to learn to criticize someone else. Now you're going to have to remember leaders of other parties' names.
True. Speaking
of... Remember?
It's like that thing I said, but JNC support 2016.
We're long gone there. They're like, oh, Kanja, who's now? Like, good.
Like, what does it mean for opposition politics? The GNU, what does it mean for opposition politics? Because like you said, the longest time everybody was saying...
Get in work, bro.
Yeah, it's going to
work.
If
you get 3 portfolios. So like, for instance, now we know, I don't know what other splits that they did, but in KZN, I know ETA, petty finance. So if the finances...
And public works.
In the public works. So if things are not being built and the money in KZN starts to run out, it's clear. It's clear, Chief.
And then nobody's going to protect that person not doing their job. Because now it goes to a vote. And
but that guy didn't work.
Because for the longest time, it's been about the person who can easily become anonymous. Now it's going to become about the party with a known person in it. You understand what I'm saying? So usually you would say, who's the minister, who's the MEC of finance in KwaZulu-Natal? We'll all be here going, we don't know. But now we'll know the party that's running the portfolio. So then we'll identify. South Africans have been lazy in knowing who's in charge of what in this country. Before, we used to know who all the ministers were. Now, ask someone now and ask them who the ministers are. That's why I'm saying that at the end of the day, with these elections, it ended up becoming about...
We used to know the horses that go to the Durban July.
Exactly.
A lot of things have changed.
But look at how our attention span has gotten so small that these elections, we had to rely on just knowing the leaders. Forget the policies. Right? We had to know just the leader, And the policies, when I asked people what the manifesto was of a party, they were like, no, you're going too far.
No, so I think we gained something in this outcomes. We lost something. You know, I think every party in South Africa has their place, right? So this is why I was.
And the gens are telling the truth, man. If you think about it, once the government has been formed, we're gonna be able to blame other political parties. It's gonna be so easy for us to say that, okay, the MEC is the MEC for IFP, the MEC, the DDG is the DDG for the DA or for the ANC. So I think it's going to make people pay more attention than they did before. You know, last time it was the ANC. For the past 30 years, it was just the ANC. And we didn't care. We didn't really care about those individuals. But now that there are different political parties, it's going to be interesting for us to actually learn about the names of these people and which political parties they belong to, which is the reason why this GNU must actually work. The GNU needs to work. The GNU needs to work.
I was saying earlier that I'm not thinking about this as every party, the leader of it must be president. That's why I don't struggle with the idea of EFF growing. All I know is I don't think with their current approach, they need to be running the country, but they can still grow.
Yeah, that's strong.
Similarly, I think DA has done a very good job of upping the game when it comes to opposition. I mean, there are some, the current mayor of Cape Town, I don't know the guy, Gordon Lewis, I don't know him personally, but he was just, when he was in parliament, you just see that this is the guy who takes his job seriously and prepares and all of that. So DA up the game on opposition.
Right.
Do I want them in government? No, for different reasons. EFF up the game on making politics accessible to an average man. You know, like watching what happens in parliament. Yes, some of it were chaos and all of that. So I think, just like in soccer, there's a goalkeeper, there's a Messi, there's a whatever, there's a whatever. Everyone has their role. So to your question, it will be interesting who steps in to be the watchdog, because DA did a fairly good job of playing that opposition. The main opposition now is MK, if we go by numbers.
But maybe if the neighborhood is safe, we don't need a watchdog.
No, you always need a watchdog.
You can't leave people to their own
You always need a watchdog.
So who's going to be the watchdog now?
But that's the problem. So because
Man, you can't say it's the MK because the MK, they don't want to go to parliament. The MK don't want to go to parliament. And even if the MK goes to parliament, are they going to be as effective as the DA was as the opposition? Because the EFF itself, it has failed to be effective. They were disruptive, yes, but they failed to be as effective as the EFF, as the DA. So is controversies are going to be as effective as the DA?
Inside the government.
These people are going to split stuff. Trust me.
Yes.
You need a watchdog. You need someone saying, I am watching you guys, this friendship you're doing. Right?
Yeah.
And that's the problem. That's why I'm saying we lost something.
And it's going to be very interesting to see who is going to play that lead as an opposition. But I personally think that the ATM of Vuyo Zungula, I think Vuyo Zungula is going to play an amazing role in parliament. And I think if he plays his cards right, it's actually going to get him more votes in the provincial elections and the national elections. Because when I think about the people that are in the oppositions, I think about Vuyo Zungula. I don't think that much about the EFF. We will see about the EFF because Julius Malema said that we are about to change our strategy in parliament. We are not going to be disruptive anymore. We want to be effective as an opposition. So it's going to be interesting to see if the EFF is going to be able to be as effective as the opposition. But right now, I think the political party that I can actually look out for as the opposition, it has to be ATM. It has to be ATM, and you have to think about Vuyo Zungula and how he pushed that matter of Palapala. You remember how Vuyo Zungula was relentless when it comes to the matter of Palapala and how he pushed that matter and not being disruptive about it and was just like going after the facts and going after what the South African Revenue Service has said and contradicting what the South African Revenue Services has said. Like, I think Vuyozungula is going to play an amazing role, and I think about other political parties. I think if the EFF can change their strategy, they're going to play a very effective role. I'm not sure about MK Party because we are yet to see the members of parliament of MK Party. I think for now, we only know about the party leader that is going to be the impeached Judge Hlophe. That is going to be the impeached Judge Hlophe. I also think the Judge Hlophe is going to be a bit problematic to the GNU, but I guess we will see, man. I guess we will see. But me personally, man, I think that Vuyozungula, it is time to shine. It is time to shine right now. At some point, it was Musimeiman with the DA, then it was Julius Malema with the EFF, but I think right now it is the time for Vuyozungula to actually shine.
And your guy was supposed to be the watchdog, and he said, "We're not going there." The one that I won't mention.
Guys, imali yakiwa globally. I want people to understand. Imali yakiwa globally.
Yes.
But umsebenzi mawenzeke.
Yeah.
There's not a single project in the entire world that I know of, and maybe you can let me know, where it has been on time and on budget that has been run by government. In the world, maybe let's take out China because that's a special case. Iyakiwa imali kahulumende, but umsebenzi mawenzeke amadoda.
Absolutely.
Let the road must be built and it must be of good quality. This is the thing. We have lived in an environment for so long where the money is chowed and the guy never even showed up on site.
Yeah.
This is where we've come from.
Like the
So
guy
these
that-
things must change. In order to build this economy, we need to start building the roads.
Absolutely.
So all the other parties, because I really think, hold on, no, you know what? I really think, no, hold on. I think first our balance is just too crowded, right? And because we can see now, it doesn't need 50 parties to get the country to work and run. You know what I mean? It may be undemocratic, but personally, I feel like there needs to be some rule or some law that will make away with all these other small guys, and we have main people. Like, what would be the ideal future for the guys who didn't make it then? Your rises of this world, because I don't get why a lot of parties don't even turn into like social movements
Go back
or
to
NGOs. Why do they need to
go back
want
to
to
the-
fight for a seat in parliament?
So this is the
What's the
issue,
future
right?
for
So
them?
we South Africans are also terrible at accounting for time, right? So the independence of America happened in 1776, right? So when people say, I want to compare the two parties in America with the many parties in South Africa, it's not a comparison. We are a young democracy and there will be consolidation at some point.
As we go, yeah.
It will happen. Already this outcome of this results is driving some form of consolidation, whatever. Natural selection will take its course.
Okay.
Right? So what I'm hoping for is the small parties that are in parliament, some of them start to own up this opposition thing.
Yeah.
And start to really
Caucus,
be the watchdog,
vote and push as a caucus.
because I don't think that's going to come
They're
from
all
the
eating.
MK.
All eating, guys.
You know, so someone is gonna have to jump in. I'm really hopeful, like someone like a Maimani, someone like a Songezo, someone like Gayton is gone because he's he's part of the bridegrooms.
But
No,
I do think,
no,
I
but
think that what you are going to see this is real accountability, and I think that's going to come through at the polls. If a party now who's in that government of national unity is not up to scratch,
Bazokushaya.
they're going to get smashed. Firstly, they're going to get kicked out of the government of national unity, and then I think their voters are going to.
We've literally
get rid of
entered
it.
an episode of Real Life Survivor.
Yeah.
People are going to get along, and that's what's going to frustrate us. Because what they decide there is what they will think is good for the rest of us. Because we got them here. We didn't want to be decisive about who we wanted to lead this country. We ordered this menu, and now it's being served.
Yeah.
And they're gonna get there. I can tell you now. I've seen it happening with just normal guys who are looking for a job, and all of a sudden they work somewhere. And like, Maje, what happened to the? They're like, no, not now. I'll tell you when it's time. It's gonna be 5 years of this.
With Palapala, it's already happening.
It's exactly going to happen.
They're going to protect.
Yeah, people are going to eat
Cyril.
together. So I can tell you now, people are going to be friends. They're going to have each other's WhatsApp numbers. They're going to be going to each other's houses. They're going to know each other's kids' birthday. They're not going to fight in parliament.
They're going to go to Ronaldo Jose's bride.
And you see, Musa is not going to be the only loud guy. He's also going to start feeling like he's going crazy.
What's most likely going to happen with the Palapala issue? I think everybody.
It's close.
That
That thing's
thing is
close.
done.
Yeah.
Remember that Edgar's account you had?
It's gone.
Remember that Edgar's account you had, and then they were calling you all the time. Then one day there's
The new speaker said the matter was closed in the 6th administration, so it's gone. It's gone.
Stop calling you.
It's gone.
Did you ask what happened?
It's gone.
And then who then's gonna ask guys who are making noise about it, such as the DA, who was saying they wanted
busy.
justice for that?
We're working.
Small
Yeah.
issue. Small
Yeah, we're
issue,
busy.
big country.
Exactly.
Small issue, big country.
Yeah, we're big.
The best way to describe it, if you ask me, is if you compare, say, the arms deal
Yes.
with state capture. When the arms deal came out and the country was growing at 5% and everybody was happy, we were happy for that thing just to get.
This thing surplus.
Bigger fish to
We're
catch.
making more money than we're
making money.
But,
Yeah,
you know,
everything's fine. So that, but state capture, when that came along, we were the
Islam,
economy.
Islam.
Government of national unity is, if you remember the cartoon Captain Planet,
Yeah.
they all have a united enemy now. They're gonna make everyone here is gonna make sure that this arms deal prosecution happens. Everyone here is it's all hands on deck now. There's one person who declared himself an enemy to progress, and all of them are gonna come together and go,
I
we
can't.
need to deal with this enemy. If it takes us 5 years, we're gonna do it. Because if all of them can report to their constituency that the biggest justice case that this country has ever seen, next to sending people that were involved in apartheid to prison, is gonna be this one.
Yeah.
But
All
then,
of them
you
are gonna say,
you
we're
so
going here.
The thing for me is, I don't know how true this stats is. So if you earn anything more than 10,000 in South Africa, you are part of the top 20% of earners.
Yeah, it's quite ridiculous.
Imagine.
Right? If you earn anything like that, 40,000, you are in the top 5%.
Panda every day with the Yavaya burger.
Jeez. It's the advert, guys. There's nothing we can do.
Right? The reason I'm mentioning those stats is these conversations could easily be echo chamber, like we are finishing each other's sentence. Because, it's like, you start a line, I finish your line, right? Because, guys, we are a minority. This conversation we are having here is relevant to a very small population, right? Mbeki used to talk about two economies. There is the rest of society out there that cannot even relate to this conversation, right? And we need to worry about how would those react. Because if voting was based on the people here, right, maybe this outcome would make sense, right? But there is a constituency somewhere that gave more than 2 million, or what is the number for the MK voters?
2.2.
Right? What are they worried about? What is driving them? For me, I'll be keen to hear that voice, because that voice is the majority voice. And that voice, we need to hear how they make sense of all of this. Because those are the people who vote.
Okay, go.
No,
But did they come out and vote? Because
we would have
What do you
gotten.
mean?
I feel like it's more of the middle class that came out to vote.
You just
Quite-
said the taxpayers, there's about
A lot of
6-7 million.
Right.
But
Who's the rest of the people who voted?
How many? 25 million people registered to vote?
yeah, only
16 showed up.
16 million.
16 showed up. Ne?
27
16
registered.
million.
27 registered.
27, which was the
27
record.
16 showed up.
But
ne?
also the worst record was that the turnout was 58.
Guys, we need
That's
to
a-
solve
that's an
the
even worse record.
Yeah, so where
so
were
we
we?
problems of big society.
Yes, and
That's what we need. And
That's
it's not
100%.
going to be trickled down.
No. We have to get in
needs
front of the things.
intervention.
Yeah, we need to get in front of the things like
We have
land.
to.
The land conversation's got to
We
be
need
fixed.
to have it.
It's got to be fixed.
Absolutely.
Because there are things that are holding us back and are mentally blocking us from seeing what could possibly happen. And we
We
must.
solved it in 15 minutes on the show.
Do you hear that?
Kick the can down the
solved
road,
the
how we
line.
like solve. There's going to be tough conversations.
Yes,
we
and they
need
must
to
be
have.
tough.
There must be.
So are we willing to ignore the rating agencies and the
They're already bumping us up, mate.
No, when we address the land issue.
Because
they're bumping
They are
us up
finishing
because
our
it's honeymoon
sentence.
phase.
Maybe here's the thing. He didn't watch our
You
podcast.
didn't watch our podcast,
So this
eh?
thing is simple. The land thing cannot be a blanket approach. It's got to be what land is economically viable in order for it to make sense. So when you talk about a piece of land that has no possibility of economic value, then that's stupid. We've got to be saying agricultural land or land that can be made agricultural and invested in, and we get people that want to work the land, right? Because a lot of the land question will say, we've got to then move people to other areas of the country or ask those
Go
people
work
there
there.
to say, are you willing to do this thing in that particular area? This is the conversation we're not having. And that's why we must get ahead of it before it becomes untenable for us to even have the conversation because the people are pissed.
Yeah.
You know, a student once said to me when I said, let's talk about this thing about land. He said, no, how about I first get the land and then you can talk about what I want to do with it? You know, so we keep on introducing these conditions.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I go hiking somewhere up Magaliesberg, right? That is a land, nothing happens there. You pay the owner $500 to go and hike there.
Yeah.
Right? Where is the conversation about productive use of land?
Yeah.
You know, so let's stop introducing all of these conversations and say this is a resource that is shared by not only by this generation, but by future generations, right? What are we going to do with it so that we measure people on the use of land and not just hogging the
But
land?
do we think
Yeah.
that
Yes.
It's a very solvable problem. If the people around the table wanted to solve the problem, it's a very solvable problem.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that by fighting, we're not going to get to the solution because then everybody says, well, I'm walking out of the room and everyone's swearing.
Property rights and land are two different things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No,
We must make this clear for people.
The distinction is
Property
important.
rights and land are two different things.
Yeah.
Because you've got a lot more black people owning property as the years go by. So we must make it clear that that's when we're not saying we're taking away your wealth that you've created over your generation, over the past 20 years. We've got to focus on the land that can be productive and can start allowing South Africa to make more than enough food and to sell things. That's what we've got to focus on.
But even more simply, the government has never opened the books to show us how much they've spent on land restitution and how many people have gotten the land and how many title deeds have been distributed.
So they do have those. They do.
Where are they?
They do, but they're not. This is again another thing with the previous gov, because the new gov, this one.
It's only 3 hours old.
That was the old administration. I don't know those guys.
Why do you spend so much money on inauguration of the same guy? You see, this is some of the
They should
things
have
I don't
literally
get.
done that thing.
We just called you and said,
Wait.
I'm a big fan of pomp and ceremony. Please come down, guys.
he had his pomp
So we've got-
ceremony.
we've
Where
gotta
does he
have-
want another one?
We've got to have a
Because I
better
want it.
conversation when it comes to the land thing, because it can unlock so much more. And
Hold on, let him finish. Let him
No, for the
finish.
benefit of the viewers.
Yeah.
Let him finish.
No, he must tell us where those stats are so that he can get to that.
Oh no,
part.
just go to the Department of Land and
they're there. You
Agriculture.
can search
They
for
have a
it.
report, right? And they do it almost, they do it in conjunction with CSIR and Stats SA. They've got a report that comes out. That, in fact, we're using that report as the main report. That's why you find that the previous administration would tell you that land ownership is growing in the country to about almost 30%, between 28 and 30%, in terms of black indigenous black people. There is a study that happens all the time, and Stats South Africa and CSIR are very credible institutions. I want to make this clear. In fact, the other African countries don't have institutions that match data-driven collation and analysis like what we have in South Africa. That's why we're able to understand fully what the issue is. So people can go to the land, the last land report. It's very clear. It tells you how much government owns, how much white people own, how much Indian people own, how much black people own. So it exists. What we then need to figure out is how much money to make the land viable is being dispersed, because IDC, Land Bank, and all of these things. And who is getting the money? Because having land for the sake of land is nothing. Because you'll just sit there and look at it. Because for a long time, even though the Mia family owned Waterfall, there was nothing happening on Waterfall for the longest time. If you've been in Joburg for a long time, you know that there was nothing there. Until Attack and all of those other property developers said, Ndwanas, we think we can do something here. Then the land became economically viable. So we've got to figure out and say, where is the money to make the land economically viable coming from, going to, and who is getting it and what are they doing with it? That's the report we don't have.
So is it the fact that people are asking?
So what actually stopped the previous administration and the ANC for the past 30 years to actually address these issues? What stopped them? And if the government could not deal with this issue of land, what actually makes us think that this time around they can deal with the issue of land?
Asking the right questions?
Yes, we're not
Or
asking
is the
that.
information
There's
not
another part
really
to this,
available?
and it goes back
Yeah,
to
yeah,
one
go
of the things you were saying earlier. We spent a lot of time talking about politicians and cabinet ministers and all of that kind of thing. But our bureaucrats have been terrible, right? So something like land, for example, and even restitution, there's enough. If they just did the easy stuff now, the picture would start looking very different. But you can't get a bloody deed, you can't get to this, you can't get to that. Stuff that should happen in 24 hours.
So what are the easy stuff?
No, the easy stuff is land where people should have title deeds, give them title deeds.
Immediately.
And get it done.
Immediately.
But get it done. You know, I was watching something quite interesting overseas, especially like in Europe, where they've got lots of coalitions and governments that are not
Cut and paste.
It takes them sometimes up to a year to negotiate that deal. This guy interviewed Cyril Ramaphosa. He said, no, you'll get it done within 2 weeks. We got it done in 2 weeks. Why? Because he felt it was important enough to get it done.
Yeah.
Well, now the time has come. It's important enough to do those.
And work in those 2 week windows.
Work with speed. Let those bureaucrats do what they have to do. 2 weeks to solve this problem in this
sector,
area.
this region. Yeah.
Okay, so just to wrap up, to round up,
We want more.
just to round up, I'm being told by the producer. So, next 5 years, what should have been achieved by the current, government of national unity?
And guys, that is the question for you too.
For it to succeed, what are the main things that should be attacked in order of urgency?
We've got to grow the economy at 2 to 3% as a start, right? 2 to 3%. We've got to have a concerted trade and economic plan that is going to involve foreign direct investment into the country, into key sectors that can grow our economy, like, for instance, oil and gas that needs exploration. We need to stop fighting over the simple things, right? And then we've got to fix Transnet.
Yeah, and then
Mike?
efficiencies where we need them, the areas that we've just spoken about, so cut red tape for business, understand the value of business and value it, because we don't in South Africa. Stop fighting over it. That shop that's on the corner is doing a valuable job for the everybody concerned. Let's let the country give them support. And then, most importantly, I know this sounds a little bit sort of hopeful, but let's stop having these stupid little fights.
Yeah.
The stupid little fights. Let's get that over with and understand that South Africa is one country out of 200, and we're all in it together. And this place has got to work for all of us. And we'll soon see that as to how the country is behaving, how people are behaving, and the conversations we're having. I'm very hopeful.
Yeah. For me, it's collaboration and cooperation. South Africans ask for this. They want the government to reflect how they live in their suburbs, how they live in their estates. They want order. They want things to run efficiently. And basically, they want whatever interest that they have to be protected. Whether you agree with them or not, but they want what's happening in their little yard inside this big complex to be protected and to stay the same. And secondly, the confidence for small businesses to thrive in this country. We just need to be told that we're doing the right thing, a pat on the back, so we can go out there and employ more people. Thirdly, an investment in arts and culture. We need to export our arts. We need to export our culture. We need to make ourselves attractive and proud of ourselves before we can just go out there and become consumers and buying music from overseas, and clothes from overseas, and cars from overseas. The trickle-down effect of that, of us not having our own confidence and our self-esteem being low in this country, is reflected in how we spend our money. So I wish those three things could change so they can reflect the way we live our daily lives. Because it's living in a bubble thing and acting like when we're inside the complex, we're championing for the people that live in the township. But when we're in the township, we can't wait to go back to our suburbs. Must end. We must all be realistic about where we live.
Facts.
Breaker!
Mustafa says facts. Hey, Eugene doesn't have any.
Jan?
Yeah, so we cover this quite a lot on our platform, citizens.org. So there's quite a lot of details there. But in terms of where we are, my wish is this also. May we continue to ask the questions, whether we call them small fights, big fights, we need to have the difficult conversation. South Africa likes buying themselves time. You know, we are like a cat, and I don't know if we are on life number 8 or life number 9. There are certain things that at some point we are going to have to confront.
Yeah.
This kumbaya of let's wait for the Springboks to do this and all of that is not going to work. We can't keep on. But there are certain things that are immediate. The guys have already touched on. SME support is very important. Government need to go and drive. We can employ more people even in government, by cutting out, if you're buying a loaf of bread for 200 Rand or 100 Rand on all of that, you can create capacity that still does the basics. Yeah. Government need the basic machinery to run services. You can create jobs from that. I spoke about SMEs. There are some big ones like education that there are no shortcuts on. Infrastructure, the ports, the rail, and all of that. Those things have to work. But those things will give us short-term benefits. May we not lose the opportunity by yet again not tackling the difficult conversations.
Sorry, I have to add one thing.
Go ahead.
Most importantly, I think, is that we need to get to peace with each other, that we actually want to make the country. Go to those big businesses, put pressure on them, as has been done where they've go help Eskom, go help Transnet, wherever. Let's all get to work. Everybody get to work and feel that your work is being valued by the country.
And it's worthwhile. And that's why one of the biggest things that's being spoken about, or maybe not being spoken about, is that one of the reasons why Eskom is working is because they called the old bullies back.
They did.
They called the old bullies back. The old bullies who were there when they installed that equipment, they're back. And they're saying, no, actually, you don't press this button, you press that one. That's what we need. That's what we need. We need the lights on.
That's it, man. We need the lights on. We need the country working for everyone. People need to work. I feel like when Mike said we need to, I forgot your words that you use, but pretty much not have tension amongst one another. That only happens when everybody is getting something when they go back home. They've got the lights on, everybody's working. It's like in that neighborhood where you said you want to keep the status quo, but that builds resentment. If I'm driving, the next person is not. If I've got bread, the next guy does not. And for us as a whole, as a country, we just need to to have the dignity and the pride of having work, employment, and that's how you build on a country.
Enjoy America, Saul. When you come back, I want you to say, when I was in America.
You know me for the longest time.
I understand the conversation is always heavily limited and when it comes to growth, but this country will grow and change from the middle class. It will not change any other way. And that's why maybe I'm adding on to what Eugene is saying. The middle class is where the growth opportunity for this country comes in. Get people from the lower class, as many as we can, into the middle class. Fortify the position of the people there. Get more taxpayers out of the country. And let's start moving some of the top cream of the middle class into the other layers. Because we've got to move people up, but we can't move everyone up. And unfortunately, we have the extreme conversation of thinking that we can change things by moving people only from here into here. We've got to fortify these people that are already paying taxes, economically active, high productivity workers. We've got to really appreciate them more. And we've got to bring the people who are in the diaspora of South Africa, who are out there in the diaspora, who are South African, to come back home and help us fix.
Brilliant stuff. Well said. We'll close it at that. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Guys, how do you feel about this conversation, man? I feel like it was a fair conversation. I don't know why some people actually thought that this conversation was not fair. Maybe it's because their political parties or their favorite political parties actually got few hits there and there, but I honestly don't think that it was a nasty conversation. I think it was a very informative conversation, and I love watching podcasts like this. So guys, I really enjoyed watching this episode with you. I wish you can actually tell me your thoughts on the comment section. Please tell me what the government of national unity needs to work on the next 5 years. What do you think we can achieve as South Africa in the next 5 years, and how do you think that can be achieved? Guys, tell me your thoughts on the comment section. Don't forget to hit that like button, and the most important part, subscribe. My name is Thomas Mabaso. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.